Picture this. Deep beneath the Iraqi desert in 1936, a German archaeologist brushes sand away from what looks like an ordinary clay pot. But inside, he finds something that shouldn't exist. A copper cylinder, an iron rod, and traces of an acidic substance that, when reconstructed by modern engineers, produces an electrical current, and suddenly everything we think we know about ancient technology shatters like glass because this battery, if that's what it is, predates Alessandro Volta's invention by 2,000 years, and it's just sitting there in a museum while scientists argue and debate, and nobody can agree on what it means or who made it or why. But here's the thing. That's just the beginning, because scattered across our planet, buried in jungles, hidden in caves, submerged beneath oceans, and locked away in museum storage rooms, there are artifacts and structures and remains that make absolutely no sense, objects that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of history, places that defy the technological capabilities of their time, and mysteries so profound that after decades, sometimes centuries, of study, the world's brightest minds still can't provide definitive answers. Welcome to the edge of archaeological understanding, where every discovery raises more questions than it answers, where ancient peoples accomplished feats that seem impossible even with modern technology, and where the line between history and mystery blurs into something almost supernatural. Over the next hour, we're going to journey through the most baffling archaeological enigmas ever discovered, and I promise you, by the end, you'll never look at the ancient world the same way again, because what you're about to hear challenges everything, absolutely everything, we think we know about human history. Let's start with something that's been staring us in the face for nearly 5,000 years. Something so massive that it's become a symbol of an entire civilization. Yet its true purpose remains one of archaeology's greatest puzzles: the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yes, you've heard of it, you've seen pictures, maybe you've even visited, but what you probably don't know is that this structure is so precisely constructed that it defies rational explanation even today. The base is level to within just 2.1 centimeters across its entire 230-meter width. The sides are aligned to the cardinal directions with an accuracy of 3/60th of a single degree, and the ratio of its perimeter to its height is exactly 2 pi, meaning whoever built this somehow encoded the mathematical constant pi into its dimensions 2,000 years before the Greeks supposedly discovered it. Engineers today, with laser levels and GPS and computer-aided design, struggle to match this precision, yet somehow ancient Egyptians, who according to mainstream archaeology had only copper tools and wooden sledges, quarried, transported, and positioned 2.3 million limestone blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons, with tolerances measured in millimeters. The interior chambers contain granite blocks from Aswan, 800 kilometers away, each weighing up to 70 tons, fitted together so precisely that you can't slide a piece of paper between them, and nobody, not one engineer, not one physicist, not one archaeologist, can definitively explain how they did it. The ramp's theory falls apart under mathematical scrutiny because the ramp would need to be longer than the pyramid itself and contain more material. The internal ramp theory leaves questions about how they maneuvered those massive granite beams in such confined spaces, and every alternative theory from water locks to sonic levitation sounds more like science fiction than history. But it gets stranger, because inside the king's chamber, there's a granite sarcophagus that's wider than the entrance passage, meaning it had to be placed during construction. Yet it shows tool marks that suggest it was carved with some kind of tubular drill that could bore through solid granite faster than modern diamond-tip drills, removing material in a spiral pattern that metallurgists say would require tools harder than the granite itself. Christopher Dunn, a master machinist with decades of experience in precision engineering, examined these marks and concluded that whoever made them had access to technology comparable to modern high-speed machinery. And he's not some fringe theorist. He's a respected engineer who spent his career working with the most advanced manufacturing equipment in the world. Then there's the question nobody wants to address. Why? Why invest unimaginable resources, mobilize tens of thousands of workers, and devote decades to building what's essentially a mountain of stone? The tomb theory seems obvious until you realize that not one mummy has ever been found in the Great Pyramid. The so-called sarcophagus has no lid and no inscriptions, and the structure's internal design is completely unlike every other Egyptian tomb ever discovered. Some researchers suggest it was a power plant, pointing to its position over underground water channels, the chemical residue in the shafts, and its resonant properties, while others argue it was an astronomical observatory, a geographic marker, or even a massive water pump, and the evidence for each theory is compelling enough that prestigious journals have published papers on all of them, yet none has achieved consensus. Move with me now from Egypt to Peru, to a place called Sacsayhuaman, where massive stone blocks weighing up to 200 tons are fitted together with such precision that, like at Giza, you cannot insert a knife blade between them, but unlike Egyptian limestone, these are blocks of diorite and andesite, stones so hard that they rank 6.5 to 7 on the Mohs scale, meaning they can scratch steel, and the surfaces are not just flat but feature complex polygonal shapes with multiple angles, curves, and interlocking sections that would challenge modern stonemasons even with power tools and computer modeling. The Spanish conquistadors who arrived in the 16th century were so astounded by these walls that they attributed them to demons or giants. Unable to believe that humans could have shaped and moved such enormous stones, and for centuries later, we're not much closer to understanding how it was done because the Inca, who occupied the site when the Spanish arrived, had no written language, left no records of construction techniques, and claimed they didn't build it. They said it was already ancient. When they found it, built by a previous civilization in a single night by giants who could make stones soft like clay. Now, you might dismiss that as mythology, but here's where it gets interesting. Scattered throughout the Andean region, there are stones that show evidence of vitrification, surfaces that appear melted or fused at temperatures exceeding 1,100 degrees Celsius, temperatures that would require industrial furnaces or some kind of directed energy. And geologists examining these stones can't explain the heat source because natural fires or lightning strikes don't produce these specific patterns or penetration depths. There are also the drill holes, thousands of them, bored into solid andesite and granite with perfectly circular cross-sections and depths of up to a meter, displaying the same spiral groove patterns found in Egypt, suggesting whoever made them used tubular drills with tremendous force and speed. Yet the Inca are not known to have used wheeled vehicles, let alone rotary machinery. At nearby Pumapunku, another pre-Columbian site in Bolivia, the precision becomes almost absurd. Stone blocks feature perfectly flat surfaces accurate to within 2 millimeters across entire faces, precise 90-degree angles, and sophisticated interlocking joints reminiscent of modern prefabricated construction, all carved from andesite that's harder than the bronze and copper tools that South American cultures supposedly possessed. Engineers who've examined these blocks note that the tolerances are comparable to modern machining, and some blocks have H-shaped grooves that look exactly like modern I-beam construction, designed to interlock multiple stones in a self-supporting structure that resists earthquakes, which raises an unsettling question. How did ancient peoples without metallurgy, without the wheel, without draft animals, and without written mathematical notation design and execute engineering projects that rival modern construction? But let's leave South America for a moment and travel to the Mediterranean, to the island of Malta, where beneath the streets of the town of Paula lies the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, a subterranean structure carved entirely from solid limestone, descending through 3 levels to a depth of 10.6 meters, covering roughly 500 square meters, and containing chambers, passages, niches, and architectural features that include corbelled ceilings, trilithon doorways, and decorative elements carved directly from the living rock. Radiocarbon dating places its construction between 4000 and 2500 BCE, making it older than Stonehenge, older than the Egyptian pyramids, and older than any other known underground temple complex in the world. Yet its acoustic properties are so sophisticated that sound engineers who've studied it are baffled. The so-called oracle room has a resonant frequency of 110 Hz, and when someone speaks or chants in this frequency, the sound doesn't just echo, it reverberates through the entire complex, vibrating in your chest, in your bones, creating an almost hallucinogenic effect that researchers say could induce altered states of consciousness. Recent studies show that exposure to 110 Hz can affect brain activity, particularly in regions associated with mood, empathy, and social behavior, suggesting that whoever designed this chamber understood acoustic engineering and neuroscience in ways that seem impossible for Neolithic peoples. Yet here it is, carved from solid rock with tools that archaeologists insist were nothing more than stone hammers and bone picks. The hypogeum was discovered accidentally in 1902 when workers cutting cisterns broke through the roof of the uppermost level, and when archaeologists began excavating, they found the remains of more than 7,000 individuals, but not in any random burial arrangement. These people were carefully placed in specific chambers, suggesting elaborate funerary rituals, and among the remains, they found something peculiar: skulls with extreme elongation, not the gradual reshaping from cradleboard binding. That's been documented in various cultures, but dramatic elongation with increased cranial volume, structural differences in the bone composition, and in some cases, the absence of certain cranial sutures that are present in normal human skulls. These elongated skulls have been found at sites across the ancient world. In Egypt, Peru, Mexico, Iraq, and Russia, and while mainstream archaeology attributes most to intentional cranial deformation, a practice documented in many cultures, some specimens show characteristics that anatomists struggle to explain through binding alone, including increased cranial capacity, different bone density, and structural features that would require genetic differences, not just external pressure during development. DNA analysis of the most unusual specimens has revealed genetic markers that don't match any known human population, containing mitochondrial DNA with sequences that have no close matches in existing genetic databases. And while this doesn't prove anything extraordinary, genetic drift and isolated populations can produce unique sequences. It does raise questions about ancient population movements, forgotten migrations, and the possibility of distinct human subspecies or populations that vanished without trace in the historical record. Now, speaking of things that vanished, let's talk about the Antikythera mechanism, because this object is so anachronistic, so technologically advanced for its time, that when it was first discovered in 1901 among the wreckage of a Roman-era ship off the Greek island of Antikythera, nobody knew what to make of it. It looked like a lump of corroded bronze with what appeared to be gear wheels inside, and for decades it sat in a museum largely ignored until X-ray analysis in the 1970s revealed its true nature, an ancient analog computer of such sophistication that nothing remotely comparable appears in the historical record for another 1,000 years. This device, built around 100 BCE, contains at least 30 precisely cut bronze gear wheels, including differential gears that weren't reinvented until the 16th century, arranged in a complex mechanism that could predict astronomical positions, solar and lunar eclipses, the phases of the moon, the positions of the 5 planets known to antiquity, and even the dates of the ancient Olympic Games, all with remarkable accuracy achieved through mathematical relationships encoded in the gear ratios. The device calculated the lunar month to within 1 part in a million, knew that the solar year was 365.25 days long, and incorporated the metonic cycle, a 19-year period after which the phases of the moon repeat on the same dates, demonstrating astronomical knowledge that historians thought didn't exist until the medieval Islamic astronomers and the European Renaissance. The inscriptions on the device, painstakingly reconstructed from corroded fragments, reveal an instruction manual written in Koine Greek, describing functions and providing a calendar that archaeologists have traced to the Greek colonies of Sicily and southern Italy, suggesting that somewhere in the Hellenistic world, there existed a tradition of advanced mechanical engineering that has left almost no other trace. No workshops, no other examples, no written descriptions in surviving classical texts. And the question that haunts researchers is, was this a unique masterpiece? Or was it merely one example of a technology that was once more common but has been lost to time, corroded away, melted down, or simply never discovered because bronze objects were valuable and routinely recycled? Michael Wright, a curator at London's Science Museum who built working replicas of the mechanism, stated that whoever designed this had a genius of incredible caliber. And recent research using computed tomography has revealed even more hidden gears and features, suggesting the complete device was even more complex than previously thought, possibly including displays for all 5 naked eye planets and incorporating gear ratios that represent lunar anomaly, the variation in the moon's orbit that wasn't mathematically described in Europe until Kepler's laws of planetary motion in the 17th century. Let's shift now to something even more perplexing, something that sits in a museum in Baghdad, largely forgotten amid the chaos of recent decades, but which represents one of archaeology's most controversial artifacts. The Baghdad Battery, or more accurately, the hundreds of ceramic jars discovered at various sites in Iraq, particularly at Kujut Rabu near Baghdad, each containing a copper cylinder with an iron rod suspended inside, the metals showing evidence of corrosion from an acidic substance, possibly vinegar or lemon juice, that would create an electrochemical reaction generating approximately 1.1 to 2 volts of electricity. When Wilhelm Koenig, the German archaeologist who first studied these objects in detail in the 1930s, proposed they were ancient batteries, the archaeological community largely dismissed the idea as absurd because the artifacts date to the Parthian period, roughly 250 BCE to 250 CE, and batteries weren't invented until Alessandro Volta's pile in 1800, meaning there's a 2,000-year gap where this technology supposedly didn't exist. Yet when modern researchers built replicas using the same materials and dimensions, they successfully generated electrical current. And when connected in series, these reproductions could produce enough voltage to electroplate objects with gold or silver, a process that would explain the remarkably even gold plating found on some ancient artifacts that seems too uniform to have been achieved through the traditional mercury amalgam method that historians say was the only technique available. Television's Mythbusters built 10 of these batteries and connected them in series, successfully generating enough electricity to power a small light bulb and to electroplate a modern coin, demonstrating that the design works, regardless of whether ancient peoples actually understood what they were creating or used them for that purpose. But here's the problem. If these aren't batteries, what are they? The mainstream archaeological explanation, that they were storage vessels for sacred scrolls, doesn't account for the copper cylinders, the iron rods, the asphalt ceiling, or why you would need hundreds of them, and no scrolls or papyrus residue have ever been found inside them. Some researchers have suggested they were used for religious rituals, possibly to create a tingling sensation that would seem magical or divine, which is interesting because ancient texts from the Mediterranean region, including references in Pliny the Elder, describe electric fish being used for medical purposes, and the Greeks knew about static electricity from rubbing amber. The Greek word for amber is elektron, from which we get the word electricity, suggesting that ancient peoples were aware of electrical phenomena even if they didn't understand the underlying physics. But could they have developed practical applications? The evidence is circumstantial, controversial, and deeply unsettling to conventional historical narratives. Yet the objects exist, they function, and nobody has provided a definitive alternative explanation that accounts for all their features. From ancient electricity to ancient flight, and yes, I know how that sounds, but bear with me because what I'm about to describe is documented, studied, and completely inexplicable within conventional archaeology. The Saqqara bird, a wooden artifact discovered in 1898 in a tomb at Saqqara, Egypt, dating to approximately 200 BCE, which at first glance appears to be a simple toy or decorative object shaped like a bird. But upon closer examination, its proportions, wing shape, and aerodynamic profile are not like any bird that exists in nature. They're remarkably similar to a modern glider or aircraft. The wings have a distinctive dihedral angle, meaning they slope upward from the fuselage, which provides lateral stability in flight. The tail is vertical like a rudder rather than horizontal like a bird's tail, and the overall weight distribution and center of gravity are positioned exactly where they would need to be for stable gliding flight, leading several aeronautical engineers to conclude that this object was designed according to principles of aerodynamics, not biological mimicry. Khalil Messaha, an Egyptian doctor and model airplane enthusiast, was the first to seriously propose that the Saqqara bird was a model aircraft, and his analysis, later supported by Martin Gregory, a British aerodynamics expert, suggested that if you added a horizontal stabilizer to the tail, something that could have been made of fabric or papyrus and has since degraded, the object would be capable of sustained gliding flight, and when researchers built replicas with this modification, they flew beautifully, covering significant distances with stable, controlled flight. Now, does this prove ancient Egyptians had aircraft or understood aerodynamics? No, it doesn't prove anything, but it raises uncomfortable questions about what ancient peoples knew and what they were capable of, especially when you consider that other cultures around the world have artifacts, artworks, and myths that seem to depict aerial vehicles. The Vimanas described in ancient Sanskrit epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, which provide detailed technical descriptions of flying machines, complete with specifications for construction, fuel types, and flight techniques. The pre-Columbian golden objects from Colombia that look remarkably like modern jet fighters or delta-wing aircraft, with features including what appear to be cockpits, stabilizers, and even landing gear. The Maya artwork showing figures seated in what look like capsules or vehicles with control mechanisms in front of them, and petroglyphs from around the world showing beings or objects in the sky, sometimes trailing what look like contrails or propulsion systems. Mainstream archaeology dismisses all of these as religious symbolism, artistic license, or misidentification, and that's probably correct for most if not all of them, but the sheer number of these depictions across unconnected cultures is striking, and it feeds into a larger question. How much have we lost? How much knowledge, how much technology, how much human achievement has simply disappeared because materials degraded, libraries burned, civilizations collapsed, and oral traditions were forgotten? The Antikythera mechanism proves that ancient peoples could build devices of stunning complexity, but if that one object hadn't survived shipwreck in the oxygen-poor depths of the Mediterranean, we would never know such technology existed, and we'd confidently assert that ancient Greeks couldn't possibly have built mechanical computers. Yet there it is. So what else existed that we simply haven't found or have found but misidentified? Take, for instance, the perfectly spherical stone balls of Costa Rica, hundreds of them, ranging from a few centimeters to over 2 meters in diameter, some weighing up to 15 tons, carved from granodiorite, a stone as hard as granite, shaped into spheres so precise that measurements with modern instruments show deviations of less than 2 millimeters from perfect sphericity, which is remarkable accuracy for objects made by a culture that, according to conventional archaeology, had no knowledge of mathematics, no written language, and only stone tools, yet they produced spheres more perfect than anything manufactured until the Industrial Revolution, and we have absolutely no idea how they did it or why. The balls were discovered in the 1930s when United Fruit Company began clearing jungle for banana plantations, and workers found these stone spheres scattered throughout the landscape, some arranged in geometric patterns, some aligned with magnetic north, some positioned in ways that suggest astronomical significance, but because they were discovered before modern archaeological methods were established, and because many were moved, damaged, or destroyed during land clearing, we've lost much of the contextual information that might have explained their purpose. The Dequis culture who created them left no written records, died out or were assimilated before Spanish contact, and carried their knowledge into oblivion, leaving us with hundreds of perfectly crafted stone spheres and absolutely no explanation for how or why they were made, though researchers have proposed everything from status symbols to navigation markers to representations of celestial bodies to some kind of unknown technological or ritual purpose. What makes them particularly frustrating is that creating a perfect sphere from irregular stone without modern tools requires not just enormous labor but also sophisticated mathematical understanding. You need to continuously measure and adjust from multiple reference points, maintain consistent curvature across the entire surface, and somehow ensure that the center of mass aligns with the geometric center, all while working with stone so hard that it dulls metal tools. Yet pre-Columbian Costa Ricans apparently did this hundreds of times, achieving precision that stone masons today, with all their tools and techniques, find difficult to replicate. But precision stonework is just one category of inexplicable ancient achievements. Let's talk about something that challenges our understanding of ancient chemistry and medicine. The Delhi Iron Pillar, a 7-meter-tall column of iron weighing more than 6 tons, standing in the Qutb complex in Delhi, India, erected approximately 1,600 years ago during the Gupta Empire, and here's what makes it extraordinary. It hasn't rusted, not significantly, despite standing exposed to monsoon rains and humid conditions for 16 centuries, because rust is almost non-existent on its surface, with only a thin layer of misohyte, a compound of iron, oxygen, and hydrogen that forms a protective coating, preventing further corrosion in a way that modern metallurgy can't fully explain or replicate using ancient techniques. Analysis of the pillar reveals it's made of 98% pure wrought iron, an achievement in itself considering the massive scale and the need to maintain temperature and carbon content across multiple forgings. The pillar was created by forge welding pieces of iron together, requiring blacksmiths to heat and hammer the metal repeatedly in a reducing atmosphere to prevent oxidation while bonding the pieces, a process that would have taken enormous skill, precise temperature control, and an understanding of metallurgy that historians didn't think existed in 4th century India. But it's the corrosion resistance that truly baffles scientists, because iron rusts, that's what it does, especially in humid environments. Yet this pillar stands virtually rust-free, and while researchers have identified several factors that contribute to its preservation, the high phosphorus content creating a protective film, the lack of sulfur and magnesium impurities, the dry Delhi climate for much of the year, nobody has successfully replicated this result using only the techniques and materials available 1,600 years ago. And when modern blacksmiths and metallurgists have attempted to create iron with similar properties using period-appropriate methods, they've produced metal that rusts normally, suggesting the ancient Indian iron workers possessed knowledge or techniques that have been lost, knowledge that modern science is still working to recover. This isn't the only example of ancient metallurgy that seems impossibly advanced. There's the Damascus steel used in medieval Islamic swords, famous for its distinctive wavy patterns and legendary sharpness and strength, created through a process involving wood steel from India that incorporated carbon nanotubes. Yes, you heard that right, carbon nanotubes in medieval swords, discovered through electron microscope analysis in the early 21st century, showing that Islamic blacksmiths somehow produced nanostructures that materials scientists didn't deliberately create until the 1990s. And while the nanotubes formed naturally as a byproduct of the forging process using specific ores and organic materials, the fact remains that medieval smiths produced materials with nanoscale structures that enhanced the steel's properties. And then, around 1750, the technique was lost, the formula forgotten, and despite centuries of attempts, modern metallurgists using period-appropriate materials and techniques still can't reliably reproduce authentic Damascus steel with all its properties. Then there's the case of Roman concrete, specifically the concrete used in structures like the Pantheon and in harbor installations that have stood for 2,000 years, becoming stronger over time rather than degrading, particularly in structures exposed to seawater, where modern concrete typically begins breaking down within decades due to saltwater intrusion and chemical reactions. Yet Roman harbor structures are still standing, still solid, and actually stronger now than when they were built, because the specific mix of volcanic ash, lime, and seawater creates a rare mineral called aluminum tobermarite through a chemical process that continues for centuries, filling cracks, strengthening bonds, and creating concrete that improves with age. Modern scientists have identified the key ingredients and the general process, but replicating Roman concrete at scale with all its properties remains challenging because the Romans used specific volcanic deposits from Pozzuoli near Naples, mixed with precise ratios of lime and seawater, and applied techniques that weren't fully documented and have been lost. And while we can make concrete that mimics some properties of Roman concrete, we can't reliably produce concrete that will last 2,000 years and strengthen over time, which raises a sobering question. How many other ancient technologies have we lost? How many processes and techniques that ancient peoples considered commonplace have vanished completely, leaving us stumbling in the dark trying to reinvent solutions that were once solved and then forgotten. Consider the Roman roads, some of which are still in use today, 2,000 years after construction, with original paving stones worn smooth by traffic but still functional, built on foundations of carefully graded layers. Large stones, smaller stones, gravel, sand, compacted and fitted with drainage systems that prevent water accumulation and frost heaving, engineered with subtle curves for water runoff and cambers for stability, surveyed with remarkable accuracy using only groma and chorobates, simple tools consisting essentially of crossed sticks and water levels. Yet Roman engineers laid out roads that ran straight for miles, maintained consistent grades through difficult terrain, and incorporated bridges, tunnels, and viaducts that still stand, all without computers, without powered machinery, without even the concept of modern engineering. And when these roads fell into disrepair after the empire's collapse, it took Europe more than 1,000 years to build roads of comparable quality, and some argue we still haven't matched Roman roads in terms of longevity and durability for the investment of resources and labor. But let's move from engineering to something even stranger, something that sits at the intersection of archaeology and impossibility. The Piri Reis map, a world map created in 1513 by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, which shows the coastlines of Europe, Africa, and South America with remarkable accuracy. But here's the problem. It also appears to show the coastline of Antarctica not as it appears today covered in ice, but as it would look if the ice were removed, revealing bays, rivers, and coastal features that weren't discovered by modern exploration until the 20th century, and in some cases weren't confirmed until ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys in the 1950s and 60s revealed the actual topology beneath miles of ice. The map's annotations, written by Piri Reis himself, state that he compiled it from approximately 20 source maps, some dating to the time of Alexander the Great, some from Arabic and Portuguese sources, and one allegedly from Christopher Columbus himself, suggesting that Piri Reis was working from much older cartographic knowledge. But here's the question. If the map does indeed show Antarctica's ice-free coastline, those source maps would have to date from before the last ice age, more than 12,000 years ago, when Antarctica was at least partially ice-free, which would require either a civilization capable of global maritime exploration and sophisticated cartography existing before the dawn of recorded history, or some catastrophic error in our interpretation of the map, because mainstream archaeology insists that no such civilization existed, that human societies 12,000 years ago were hunter-gatherers with at most rudimentary agriculture, incapable of ocean navigation, map-making, or coordinating knowledge across continents. Skeptics point out that the supposed Antarctic coastline could be a distorted representation of South America's coast, that the Piri Reis map contains no